Welcome to Between Two Chairs, Demystifying Commercial Real Estate, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends on the South Florida commercial real estate market, with your hosts, Fernando Arencibia Jr. and Jennifer Wollmann. In each episode, we dive into the world of commercial real estate and break down complex concepts to make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a real estate professional, a curious investor, or just interested in the South Florida market in general, Between Two Chairs is the podcast for you. So pull up a chair and join us.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Between Two Chairs. My name is Fernando Arencibia, and with me, as always, is the ever-encouraging Jennifer Wollmann. Jennifer, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
I like it how we are on episode 85th, and Jennifer still sometimes doesn't point the mic in the right direction, but we're going to get there, guys. I promise you.
I may never get there. I still don't know how to use my remote.
I say 85 more episodes and we're going to get this right. We have a very, very special episode today and a great guest, and we are honored to have him. And I'm going to have Jennifer, as she does it so well, make the introduction. Jennifer, would you please introduce our guest?
Sure. So today we have the pleasure of speaking with Carson Baird. He's a broker with LandQuest, and we're going a little bit outside of Southeast Florida, and we're going across Alligator Alley over to Southwest Florida. So for those of you who aren't from Florida, think Naples and Fort Myers. And I'm really looking forward to this because Carson is somebody that I've followed a while on LinkedIn. And as with most people, you follow every now and then you'll comment. And Carson did a post where he admitted to a faux pas that he created. And maybe he can get into that a little bit because I only remember the general details, but it's what got us connected. He had met somebody that he had followed on LinkedIn, and he found out, he met him in person and found out where he was from. And he goes, "Oh, do you know so-and-so?" And he goes, "I am so-and-so."
Oh, yes. Okay. You had me lost there for a second, but now I'm blushing because I remember exactly what we're talking about now. And I'll be sure to send this podcast link to him directly so that he can get a good laugh also.
But that's what made me, that was so authentic that's what made me remember you, so that when I ran in all the other posts, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a dad. We'll get into that. He's got twins. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. He's kind of a neighbor. But it was that one non-real estate, non-anything related post that made me remember you so clearly. So when I ran into you at the C5 CCIM conference earlier this year, I'm like, wait a minute, are you Carson? And I wanted to make sure I got the name right, or, instead of saying, "Hey, do you know Carson Baird?" That would have been a better lead.
Oh, that would be kind of meta. That would be a good moment within a good moment there.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some history other than being a broker and dad of, what are they, 6-month-old now, twins?
Yeah, so they're about 6.5 months old. So I'll get into the family in a minute. First off, I want to thank you sincerely for having me on. This is such a cool opportunity for me, and being a South Florida centric podcast, I liken it to talking to our neighbors across the pond, or almost engaging with those that are in another country, because I'll back up and say this to the national audience. When people say South Florida, it is Miami, Fort Lauderdale, up the southeast coast of Florida. We are probably adjacent from a geographical perspective. Naples is due east of Fort Lauderdale, or due west, but we have such a different culture, buying opportunity. We're a tertiary market, whereas you guys are very much a primary market. The players are different in each market, so it really is such a different place, even though geographically we're only a short drive away across Alligator Alley. So I'm hoping to hopefully bring a unique perspective and give you guys a look at the market over here, which is fantastic, but it's very different than what you guys are experiencing over there too. So a little bit about me. I am somebody that grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad was the creator of a body shop, and he met a lovely little banker that he had coaxed into eventually dating and marrying him, and got him to be his secretary at his body shop office. This is back in Atlanta, where I was born. So my mother and father were truly the two cogs in that machine. From about day 3 of being on this earth, I was on my mother's desk in that body shop. So I tell people I've got Bondo in my blood. I'm truly, from an entrepreneurial family that's lived it since day one. How that ties back into commercial is my dad eventually opened a few more stores, ultimately sold out to one of the big national MSOs in that space. They were, some of maybe stores 25 through 30 or something like that. That same company now has over 900 locations across North America, and they're publicly traded. So, long story short, dad retired, unretired, and decided, look, I really don't want to do the body shop stuff, but I really enjoyed the real estate and development side of things. So tell me where you want to be. I will find you a site. I'll do the entitlement work. I'll do the greenfield development or brownfield improvements that you need. I can get you open faster than you could on your own because you're public with a bunch of red tape. And, let me act as an outsourced real estate development arm for you. So that was right around the time when I was in high school, and I got some cool exposure to that, every now and then, and thought, man, that would be really cool if we could do something like that as a family one day. So kind of tabled that idea, went, got a degree, got a tech sales job, which is what brought me down to Fort Myers from Atlanta in the first place, and never looked back. This has been my home now for a decade. But eventually got to a point in my career where I thought, I'm not loving what I'm doing, and I've always wanted the opportunity to work with my dad. There's really, no better time to take a leap like that than now. So blindly got my real estate license, joined up with a residential broker here that, wasn't really able to offer any value on the mentorship side, and just made it all up as we went. Tried to do a bunch of commercial deals with my dad, buying, entitling, developing body shops, and we got maybe 1 or 2 done, but figured out 1,000 ways on how to not get a deal done. So that was my intro into commercial real estate. Was kind of getting kicked from all different directions, trying to make my way into this industry without having any proper guidance. So it brings us to right around when COVID happened. COVID 2020, as you very well know, the Florida real estate market did a thing. It got white hot, no supply anywhere to be found, and being a rigid public company, these guys couldn't really flex their buying parameters of development, line item, and nothing penciled at that point. So our pipeline gets demolished, and I thought, all right, so now what am I going to do? Because I have no pipeline, would like to start a family, and that's kind of hard to do with no income. So I told my dad, I said, look, you and I will definitely still work together, but I need you to become one client while I go and really learn how to do this job the right way and pick up others. So that's what brought me to LQ Commercial. So when I joined, we were LandQuest. I'll have to throw this out there before my marketing director comes in and kicks my ass.
That's right. I'm sorry. I apologize. You can throw me under the
All
bus.
good,
I still remember you as LandQuest. Sorry.
Yeah, and
it's still Joe Robbie Stadium too, by the way.
So for anyone in Florida, LandQuest Commercial, we've been around for some time now. We're getting ready to celebrate our 20th anniversary, and we've played in all the areas around South Florida, but recognize, that's a different game entirely. So we have offices in Naples, Fort Myers, which is our core locations. And then we also have locations in Tampa and Orlando as well. So I joined LandQuest because they offered a kind of junior associate or mentorship program, got connected with a fantastic mentor, a gentleman named Mike Price, who just last week was promoted to the managing director of our Fort Myers location. Really got to sit under him and kind of crawl, walk, run into land and development deals while also generating my own pipeline. So that's been where things have gone for the last 2.5 years. And, I'm happy to say that was maybe the best decision I've ever made in my career. not just from a company perspective and being a good cultural fit, but having a mentor, the right mentor for you, is one of the most important things you can get right as somebody that is early in commercial real estate. I think that is critical in getting on your feet and being able to set up a foundation for you to go and thrive on your own. So
now, I find it interesting, if you don't mind me jumping in, because we have hundreds of conversations with agents that are new to the industry, or that are looking to transition into commercial. Can you differentiate or give us what are the qualities that you're looking for in a mentor? Because I find that for some people, they're outright just looking for leads. And then some people are looking for how to generate my own book of business, right? And I think that there is a distinction, and there is a difference between a mentor and someone who's providing you leads.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first off, it's going to be kind of making the match. My ideal mentor is definitely not going to be the same as somebody that may prefer more structure in a national setting with centralized CRM and this and that. I'm somebody with ADD that likes to be able to bounce around to a dozen different places in one conversation, which means this podcast is probably going to be all over the board.
You're at home, buddy.
Yeah.
But what I found with Mike was he and I had a couple of conversations, that made me go with this company over the few others that I was talking to. It was the interest in my success without having any guaranteed return on it. So he was looking at this as, okay, I understand your experience and what you've done so far. You've already kind of taken some of those initial growing pains, and you still want to do this. So I was qualified as somebody that he thought could be successful in this space. And for me, I looked at him and, he was able to give me the comfort that, okay, I have somebody that is invested in my success, that is flexible enough to not make me feel silly for asking questions that might, be obvious or anything like that. He made me feel comfortable in extending myself out there and, being able to grow under him. So it's been a really healthy relationship. I've never at any point felt like there was something that I couldn't, bring to him, whether that be deal related, whether that be office politics related, whether that be life related. He was willing, able, and happy to help me with whatever was going on in front of me. And there was never any expectation that, you need to, hit XYZ metrics and, breathing down my neck or anything like that, which allowed me to get up on my feet with no pressure. I never felt like, I've got to do, deals. You end up with broker breath and the pressure to get a deal done, even if it's not in the best interest of the people you're working with. So we'll always be appreciative of him. And we'll definitely credit getting on my feet because he was there for me.
Now, did the fact that you have ADD and jumped around all over the place, do you specialize in any one area, or do you pretty much kind of stick with the cars or with the land, or, beneath it all is the land. So every real estate deal is really a land deal, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that question, because there's a lot of advice that goes around on channels like LinkedIn that's directed towards, people in college that are looking to become associates out of school. And they always say, get hyper specialized. You want to be the key cog in that machine in your local market. You want to be multifamily, 20 to 50 units or something very, very tailored. I think there is another way to do it. And I think that's, excuse me. I think that's to get a baseline of information across all asset types, understanding how this industry works as a whole. And then, I'm a millennial and Harry Potter was big when I was growing up. Like, put the sorting hat on, figure out what asset type you want to align with, and then really sink your teeth in. So I had the background of working in this, kind of specialized product type. The collision center space is a heavy commercial, light industrial, 15,000 square feet with an outdoor storage component. but they like retail frontage. So, that was a very unique product that I was looking for. But when I joined LQ, I told myself I want to do one of every type of deal. So my first 12 to 18 months, there wasn't a lead or an opportunity that I said no to. Because I needed the opportunity to make some money, and that was good for me to get that exposure. But B, I also wanted to see what it looked like, because I had no idea just how specialized retail it really is. Once I started getting into some of those conversations, I go, holy cow, you guys think of literally everything, and the amount of data that they have on their customers and this and that versus office, understanding, all of the unique requirements that make an office space compatible for a specific tenant. On the investment sales side, so I got exposure to a bunch of asset classes that I didn't necessarily, align with, but I'm really glad I now have that baseline exposure to understand at a high level what they're talking about if I'm ever in the room with those guys. But as far as what I am today, it is land and industrial specialist. So I have had exposure to institutional Class A, 500,000 square foot development and investment sales, all the way down to, small bay flex. Just yesterday, got a deal under contract that's a 1,200 square foot industrial condo. And then on the land side as well, we can do development deals anywhere, any asset class really, anywhere from assembling stamp lots for retail out parcels all the way up to hundreds of acres types of ag land. So my focus going into 2025 is mostly around industrial, both land and development. So over here, we've had a very robust industrial market, especially with the hurricane activity going on in the area. I don't know how hard it hit South Florida, but with Hurricane Ian, we were already fairly tight on industrial supply, probably about 4% vacancy. After Ian hit, FEMA came in, blank checks getting thrown around left and right, but we need a building to be able to, host our trades or whatever it was. So our inventory dropped to less than 1%. And it was a name your price kind of market, really interesting to watch. We've since stabilized. We're in the fives, I think, right now for vacancy, but I really enjoyed kind of seeing that dynamic play out. And so that's where I'm focused now is industrial, Southwest Florida. And then the second job that I still get to do is site selection and entitlement work for that same body shop, but I'll do that across the Southeast in Florida, Georgia, Alabama. So when things are a little slow here, I can go and do some treasure hunting elsewhere.
That's great. I like that treasure hunting.
Carson, let me ask you, is there any validity? Some people say that when you're in a tertiary market, that it is very hard to specialize, that you have to kind of be a generalist. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think, there's primary and secondary, which obviously have minimum criteria. And at that point, there are, institutional investors that will be there. In tertiary markets, that's not necessarily a guarantee because a lot of these funds don't look at tertiary as that opportunity that they want to be in. This isn't Dallas, Texas. This isn't Atlanta or Nashville or Miami, Tampa, Orlando. This is more of a wild card, the Vero Beach market, Fort Myers, what are they? There's thousands of them across the country, and you've really got to get, deep into the weeds to figure out if it's a good opportunity or not. But Fort Myers, Naples, as far as markets go, is one of the largest in Florida for tertiary, and also one of the lowest hanging fruits for industrial specifically. We have some of the lowest industrial square footage per person in the entire state of Florida. We were top at one point. So when people look at Fort Myers, they say, oh, that's a market that is vastly undersupplied. And when you look at our growth metrics, we're growing extremely fast. So we've actually seen a number of institutional groups come in and start to play in this tertiary market, which maybe 10 years ago was not the case. So I think here in this specific tertiary market, you definitely would need to specialize if you want to be that top 5% broker. So the guys that we see that really have tremendous success down here are focusing on one asset class specifically. There will be that industrial big box distribution specialist or office Class A. It's more specialized here, but I could see in other markets you may need to be more general if there's not enough market opportunity for you to really make it just in one bucket.
I wanted to ask you, we're this Between Two Chairs podcast. Our other title is Demystifying Commercial Real Estate. Because of your expertise in land and land development, and specifically in industrial, there were a couple of terms that you mentioned, like brownfield and greenfield. And so I guess the best way to ask the question is, for those that don't have a lot of experience in dealing with land, can you maybe mention, a few of the things to look out for that are most important, or that they would have to learn to navigate in order to transact in land, or in order to invest in a land deal?
Yeah, absolutely. And greenfield, brownfield, I think some people have various definitions, but my use of the term is that a greenfield is a green site where you're taking raw, undeveloped land, entitling it for your specific use, developing that site, doing the civil work, putting your building on that site, getting a certificate of occupancy, and at that point, you're running a business. You took it from start to finish. A brownfield would be an existing structure that you redevelop for your specific purpose. So, in body shops, for example, we've taken existing furniture stores. These are 15,000 square foot boxes, clear span buildings that have enough parking or a rear truck area that makes sense for fenced outdoor storage of wrecked cars that are awaiting repair. And they typically have good frontage. So, something like that would be a brownfield opportunity where we can get the building at the right basis. We can put $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million into it and repurpose that building for an auto body use. Now, things to look out for, namely, is zoning. Zoning is where, deals like that can get caught up, because sometimes a neighborhood retail type zoning will not support a more intensive use like auto repair. And then there's different levels of auto repair, categories in a lot of these comp plans or county codes. So, your guy doing oil changes at the Jiffy Lube is not the same as the guy that is stripping down your car, using heavy chemicals, having a paint booth, and going to park a wrecked car in the back parking lot for, a month at a time. So, right. Zoning is something that we'll have to check. If it's in a PUD, always have to make sure that you read those documents thoroughly and that you understand the process if you're going to put that use there, what that looks like. That was a very expensive lesson that I got to learn very early on, in getting permission with the neighbors. So, that's a few things to think about.
Planned urban development.
Yeah. For those that are learning.
Yeah. I like to think of it as the HOA for commercial properties.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great description.
There you go.
Yeah.
So another post that you did that I loved, and you were very good at saying, especially now that we're getting so many political ads for the election when that was coming up.
Is it over yet?
Yes. No. Almost. Is make LOIs great again. It was that you wanted a hat that said MLGA. So going through an LOI that is currently on, I think it's third month, I felt your pain.
Yeah.
So along the lines of Fernando's question, for those that are either currently in LOI hell or have been there, or to avoid it, what are some of the things that you could recommend would make LOIs great again?
Yes, absolutely. So that was a recent post of mine, just based on a personal experience, where in 1 week, 2 deals that were essentially agreed upon were not actually executed. So, again, to back up, because we absolutely abuse acronyms in the space that we work in, LOI is a letter of intent where 2 parties will agree to do a specific deal. It's basically agreeing to the high level stuff and then saying, all right, look, I think we've got this figured out. Now let's put a purchase and sale agreement together, or a lease agreement in that case. And then we can actually have a binding legal contract where the terms are laid out. They need to be executed upon, and you should end that with a closing or an executed lease where you now take possession of a property. So in this instance, it was for a purchase of a property where we had agreed to all these terms. purchase price, earnest deposit, due diligence timing, any sort of financing contingencies, when we planned on closing. And that deal was secured, I would say that was about a month ago, at which point gave me the green light to go engage an attorney to draft a purchase and sale agreement, as well as a lease agreement, because this was a sale leaseback opportunity. So I went through that process, spent a couple $1,000 getting all these legal docs drafted, engaged with their attorneys, sent them everything, and things got kind of quiet from there. Got the runaround, excuse A, excuse B. I thought, okay, this is kind of strange. Getting a little bit of red flags in the back of my head, understanding that time kills deals every time. If things go quiet, if things take too long, you can bet that that deal will have less odds of closing or actually moving forward. So in our case, we had uncovered finally that the group that we were engaged with got approached by a REIT that gave them an offer on their entire portfolio, where we were actually just trying to buy one location in their portfolio. And he said, I'd rather have one landlord. And I said, I agree with you. That sounds great. I just wish you wouldn't have made the commitment to us prior to engaging with them. So because that gap in time between LOI and PSA was so long, it allowed some third party to come in and disrupt the deal. So as far as making LOIs great again, it really comes down to, okay, terms have been agreed upon, but you are not in any way protected. This is not a legally binding document. You must then get the actual contract in place and executed, at which point, now we have a binding contract. There is a penalty for disrupting a deal like that, and you can move forward, execute, invest the money you need to for your due diligence, and have the peace of mind that they can't just run away. So, I made that post about making LOIs great again, and this is a great segue into the story that you told me earlier, because it's the same gentleman that has Make 4Caps Great Again on LinkedIn. He sells hats, and I'm pretty sure he sold a ton of them. So he's a single tenant net lease guy out in California. This is a gentleman named Tyler Bendy, young guy, super successful. He does single tenant net lease stuff all across the 50 states. And I connected with him on LinkedIn 6 months, a year ago, some time ago, and ended up at a social media specific commercial real estate event called the CREI Summit. A fantastic event if you are looking to use social selling in commercial real estate. You got to go to it. Palm Springs next year. Look it up, or post in the comments. We're happy to send you a link to it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks. Yeah, we're going to be there next year.
Absolutely. Yes, it's going to be a great time. So Tyler was at this event, unbeknownst to me, but the first night, happy hour, you're meeting 1,000 different people that you've never met before, drinking from a fire hose in the happy hour type setting, just bebopping back and forth between people you don't know. So end up with a group having a conversation. This is probably a couple of drinks in, so things are just kind of flowing. But yeah, this guy's a part of this conversation, and yeah. So what's your name? Oh, Tyler. Cool. Yeah. Like, what do you do? Oh, single tenant net lease stuff. Where are you based? L.A. Oh, no way. Do you know Tyler Bendy? He's like, I am Tyler Bendy. I said, oh, like you work with him, or no?
Or it's a firm.
No. And I look over, and the other couple of people that are in our little circle of trust are white as ghosts. Like, oh God. They're watching a train wreck, but they can't look away. I'm just putting my foot further and further in my mouth, and I go, oh, shit. Hi, Tyler. Nice to meet you. I'm Carson. We know each other on LinkedIn. I didn't know what to do at that point. I was just like, you know what? It happened. I'm rolling with it. So nice to meet you, man. You look younger in person. I don't. So good for you, like reverse catfish me. But no, he was a great sport. He's a great dude overall. So we had a great laugh about it, but I definitely had to share that. Share that on LinkedIn, because that was reality. I mean, things happen. I'm an outgoing guy that puts myself in spots like this, and the story needs to be told because it entertains. It's a good laugh, and
well, and the fact that it did made you. I mean, because That is so me. Like, I've put my foot in my mouth so many times. And usually we don't share that because we just want to block that out of our brains. Like, that never happened. I would never do something like that. So when you posted that, it completely resonated with me. So as soon as I saw you in person, I'm like, I know him. But yeah, I should have been like, hey, it would have been much better. See, I always think of the great punchlines after the fact.
You just take
would have
notes
been better.
after that.
Hey, are you Carson?
Yeah, if I ever find myself in that exact position again, I'll know exactly what to say. Yeah. So Tyler's a great sport, and that CREI summit is great. They've really come onto the scene and helped kind of formalize structure for people that are looking to break into socials on commercial real estate. There's so many channels nowadays that you can really get connected with people that are either doing the same role that you are and make great partners, great teammates, great, support network, but also people that you really want to do deals with as well. So,
right.
Jennifer, we talked a little bit ahead of this, just kind of brainstorming about things that we could talk about other than my adorable twins and this and that. But, socials has really evolved, and in commercial real estate specifically, I can put a lot of content out there, and I don't always really recognize who I'm landing with. So I'm connected with a bunch of good broker buddies and this and that, and that's all good and fine. But after really formalizing my approach to social media, and I say social media, I'm really focused on LinkedIn. I will probably have a Twitter in the next couple of months, or X. Don't kill me, Elon.
It's okay. Joe Robbie Stadium theory. Just stick with it.
Yeah.
Twitter's good.
Yeah, no. I wish I had enough money to kill one of the most famous brains in the world just for my own personal pleasure. I digress.
Yeah.
But I really formalized my approach. I thought about what kind of content I want to put out there, what kind of perception I want people to have about me. And I thought, rather than faking it, I'll be myself. So I post content that makes people aware of who I am, whether it's good or bad. I think a lot of people get caught up in, they're going to think about me as somebody that, isn't a professional. I have a giant red mustache on my face, and I'm unkept, and I'm not sleeping a ton. You need to know about that if you're going to do a deal with me. You don't need to have me look at, and think, oh, wow, that guy's really put together. And then you meet this person, and that expectation isn't reality. I think that's so key to being successful with your social media engagement, is being authentic. So, to fast forward to the actual value of it, there are multiple deals in my pipeline right now that were generated because of content. And then from people that came to me saying, hey, I saw your content, XYZ. I see you do this in Southwest Florida. I'd like to talk. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. I've got a $3.5 million land deal under contract because some guy saw my content. I still don't know what he saw or how he saw it. He said, I'm a developer in Wisconsin. I have a house in Naples, and I'd love to move some of my business down here. And that story can be repeated. There's a huge influx of high net worth individuals down in Naples that are bringing their businesses here. They would love to have a real estate arm that is focused down here as well. And it was such an eye opener for me that and Bob Knackle's got the perfect quote for this, and I'll steal it right now. It is not about who you see. It is about who sees you on social media. So, while I'm engaging and connecting and doing this and that, and just being my authentic self on social media, there are people out there that look at this and go, yeah, that's a guy I could do a deal with. When the time comes, I want to break into that Southwest Florida market, they'll give me a call. And being able to connect too with the right buyers or, key players in your market too, to stay top of mind. It's just, once you understand and get a sense of the value that it can provide, it is a no-brainer. And if you're young in the industry as well, it should be a requirement that you put an emphasis on your social presence. We're a relatively older population over here. I think average age in my little village where I live is probably 65. And the principals of our company are fantastic, but they were never engaged on socials before. So they look at this and they're like, dude, I see you wasting a ton of time on LinkedIn. I was like, here's my pipeline. That post right there is going to make you money. So I hope that helps you guys understand. I'm not sitting there just dawdling and, this isn't me scrolling through, Facebook Reels or whatever it is to kill time. I'm generating business. It's just in a way that might not be immediately apparent on the outside if you didn't, look into that critically.
Carson, let me ask you something. You mentioned at the beginning of your conversation on socials that once you formalized your social media approach, what does that look like for you?
Well, I'll show off some swag that they give, but CREI Summit will give you the book, so to speak, on how to really organize and structure your content. Now, depending on what platforms you are, what asset types you work in, what kind of buyers or tenants you're trying to engage with, will kind of dictate what mediums you use to connect. So like industrial, I'm really not going to find anybody on Instagram Reels or TikTok, but LinkedIn is a fantastic platform to meet developers, principals, investors, large tenants, those kind of things. So that was the first step. And then looking at it from, okay, I want to improve my, you set up goals and then, you put the steps together to reach those goals. So as far as metrics are concerned, there are connections, there are impressions, and there's engagement in your content. So you'd love to see all three of those ideally. And I said, all right, well, I would like to generate a following that's relevant to my business. How do I do that? I make content relevant to it, and that can be in a number of different formats. And going to CREI Summit really helped me kind of follow a guide as opposed to putting a bunch of ideas on paper. They'll set up worksheets, schedules, talk about different ideas for content. There's an Excel sheet out there somewhere that, gives you 40 high-level ideas of content, just the 5 things I wish I knew when I started, or, 3 things that made this deal work, that kind of stuff. Just baseline structure that all you need to do is, mindlessly fill in the blanks on a deal that you did, and it makes it easier to post relevant and meaningful content. So for me, I just wanted to make sure that I was consistently engaging. I didn't get too caught up on the quality of that content, because there's times, I think I made a post this morning, it was like a single sentence and a picture that I'm going to an event. I'll see you there. Sometimes I'll do long form content that gets really into the weeds about, how to start out as a commercial broker and the things that you need to focus on, and why this other thing that you focus on doesn't make sense. So I really try and diversify the types of content that keeps the engagement high. And I can do some A/B testing that way as well to say, all right, what is really getting viewed? What is getting engaged with? And it's not always what you would think. So for me, the number one piece of advice that I could give anybody is set a cadence, do it consistently, and don't get too caught up in making your content perfect. There's going to be 1,000 posts a year, or somebody's going to read 1,000 posts a day. If yours isn't really on point that day, it's not going to kill your performance. So,
right.
But then you have one really good one of you being an idiot in front of another LinkedIn connection, and that's the one that really resonates and gets you on a podcast.
Yeah, for me, it's the idiot ones. It's not the ones that are too smart or a lot of detail. It's the human ones.
People being vulnerable, people showing man, I'm really going through this at home, and I didn't make my calls today as I wanted to, but it also makes you a human and gets people to say, oh, okay, this guy's not a robot like I thought he was, because he posts really great content and he's a super high performer, but also, his kids are rebelling against him. They're 14 years old and don't want to listen to anything he says. And they don't think he's cool, even though he's doing probably, $2 to $3 million a year in income just based on his industrial big box commissions. Like that guy's my hero. But for his 14-year-old son, he's like, Dad, leave me alone. I'm trying to play Call of Duty. So, yeah.
Well, some of your posts are public service announcements. Like, I know that if I send you $5,000, you could get me that 2002 Ford Explorer with a tree trunk, for an engine. That's really good.
One of the reasons that I wanted to interview you, aside from I relate to your authenticity and everything, is totally real estate related. And it came from a question of a friend of ours who We were in the car on the way back from Orlando, and we were obviously talking real estate because that's what we do. And he said, well, it's such a strange market, and Florida has boomed so much. If you had an investor who came to you and said, I had $50 million to invest, what would you advise them on?
Ooh, so many things to uncover there in a short amount of time. So if somebody is blindly saying, I'm representing a guy who's got $50 million that he's got to place somewhere, you got to understand who that person is first and foremost, and what kind of, what is this money serving for them? Are they investing for their generational, family legacy? Are they investing for high growth? Do they want to put it all on black? There's a lot of different ways you can kind of play your cards here in Florida. For example, at that same C5 summit that we were at, we did have a conversation with a guy who represented a sovereign fund from Far East that was looking for a $50 million trophy asset. So for them specifically, it was hotels, it was retail, it was something that can't be replicated. And I said, we may have one or two of those things on our coast, but really you need to go talk to Fernando and Jennifer. That's a South Florida, Miami asset. Finding a boutique hotel or something like that. For somebody that is a little more risk averse, there are opportunities to buy into triple net leased assets here. We have, I'll speak to Southwest Florida specifically. I know your coast as well is crushing it, but Class A industrial is doing super well. It is a very stable asset, and with the rise in e-commerce over the last 15 to 20 years, warehouse feels like as sure of a bet as you can get. So you can find somebody that has an Amazon warehouse on a 30-year lease or something like that. That'll sell it to you for $50 million, and you just want to simply place that in a trust and collect the checks. That's a great way to go about it. If you're somebody that is an operator, you want to actually go and put shovels in the ground. There are opportunities to buy some very, very expensive dirt, or buy dirt and build some very expensive projects on an asset class of your choosing, maybe targeting a little bit higher IRR, but or longer time horizon before you actually see any money coming back your way. So it really just depends on the individual and their goals for that $50 million. That said, Florida has those opportunities in spades. It's just depending on where you want to place your chips.
Right, what your goals are with that investment. The other reason I thought it was perfect timing is just because we have such a restriction on land over here where we are, right? I mean, we've got the Everglades on one side, the ocean on the other, and we've been seeing more and more projects, especially for single family residential. The push across the country in the last pretty much decade has been to build multifamily rentals or build to rent single family or townhouses. But in my opinion, at least what I'm hearing from my kids are a lot older than yours. I have grandchildren older than your kids. Is they really want single family homes, right? And they want single family homes in the neighborhoods where they live and work. And what we're seeing is more projects like the Ave Maria. So I think over by where you are, and for some people, that is a pretty easy commute from, like if you live in Weston Plantation, more like Southwest Broward, or if you work there, it's a pretty easy commute over to Ave Maria. So I'm wondering, excuse me?
I'm glad you mentioned Ave Maria, and it is certainly a unique community. So for those out of the loop, Ave Maria is a master plan community that is in Collier County, where Naples is. Naples is a very expensive market. We have, I think, the highest concentration of billionaires in the country in that area. But there are a number of service jobs that are blue collar and aren't paying the wages that you would need to see in order to live in an area like that, where the average home price is probably $1 million and up. So Ave Maria was built east on some former ag land, conservation land, and is the home to a lot of single-family residential development from a lot of these national home builders, the Pulte's, the Lennars, the Taylor Morrison's of the world. And just recently was at a CCIM local gathering and I forget the gentleman's name. I want to say it was from Baird Collier Companies that, has a big hand in that development. And they found out that I think it's over 70% of the residents in Ave Maria over here in Southwest Florida work and commute in South Florida. So to your point, if they are, let's say they lived in West Palm Beach and their house cost them $600,000 up there and they had to commute down 95 or the Turnpike or whatever to go to their job in Miami. It's about a 2-hour commute and some miserable traffic. You could do that same drive in Ave Maria and have it be casual because you don't have that same traffic issue, and you can own a home, single family with yard in a very nice, quiet area, low crime, everything like that, for probably $350,000. So it certainly wasn't something I was aware of until they started talking about it. But as they got into it, it made a lot of sense that the suburban sprawl in South Florida can't really go anywhere because you're landlocked. You've got ocean on your east, you've got, ocean on the south, you've got swamp to the west, and you've got a bunch more houses already there on the north. So where can I go? Alligator Alley offered the opportunity to suburban sprawl and take a jump a little bit further out, but it meant that you could have affordable housing and still keep your job in Miami. So I thought that was very, very interesting, something I would have never been aware of until they kind of talked through that. And yeah, it's been proven. So I'm curious as well to see if Immokalee, Ave Maria, if that kind of trend continues where you see some of these, income sources from South Florida decide to set up residence over here in Southwest Florida.
Well, our middle son graduated from FGCU, and even though he's a 305 guy, he keeps thinking, Mom, I might have to move to the West Coast because at the rate we're going, and he makes a very, very good living. And he's like, at the rate we're going, I don't know if I'll be able to afford anything. So I'm like, well, buy an investment property first,
So tell me your parents in real estate without telling me your parents in real estate.
Buy investment property first.
That's
so anyway, but to your point, I think where you are, you're currently in the tertiary market. I think the main issue, your airport's growing significantly. You don't really have a port nearby. I think your closest port is what, Bradenton?
Yeah, we're certainly not a port play.
Right.
And even downtown Fort Myers, they talked about, we have marinas there that got crushed during Hurricane Ian, but you would have to dredge significantly to get some of those larger yachts in play as well if you wanted that like ultra high net worth individual. So yeah, as far as port distribution, we're really not a good play, but you mentioned the airport. RSW, Fort Myers International Airport, is a huge driver of commerce here. And there's probably 4 million square feet under development of industrial within 3 miles of that airport. And actually a developer over by you, Malcolm Butters, has come over and blessed us with his presence. I think he's got 2 million square feet planned here. So we're definitely generating a lot of commerce through that airport. Going a little bit north of that into Charlotte County, Punta Gorda has a municipal airport there that's expanded their commercial operations, and they have an entire district dedicated to industrial distribution for that type of use as well. And their unique kind of claim to fame is that they can cover the 3 primary markets in Florida with a single day of trucking and come back to your own bed at night. So they could hit Tampa, Orlando, Miami round trip and be back at their own residence. So we're seeing a lot of growth up there on that side as well.
That's amazing.
Awesome. I'm wondering, by the way, FIU benefactor and the FIU Real Estate School of Hollow Real Estate benefactor, Malcolm Butters. So shout out to him.
Oh boy.
Carson, with your other hat, which is to identify these locations for the auto-related business, right? If we could make it more general. One of the things that we've noticed in South Florida is that, we empathize with the mechanic and the local body shops because we feel that somehow a lot of the landlords have wanted to restrict that use. Right. They have these environmental concerns. And when things have been very competitive, and they have the ability to put a cleaner use in their space, even though it is built for industrial.
Yeah.
They often reject, right? Having a mechanic shop in their locations. And so when we have our conversations at our local watering hole, we always say, well, where are they going to find a home, right? Because it's needed service, right?
Yeah.
It's important. I'm wondering if you're seeing that. Is that a trend that you're seeing throughout the areas that you're doing business in? I'd love your opinion on that.
Yeah, so I've certainly seen much of the same, where I kind of associate it with, like, when you think about a retail strip center, tenant mix is critical in that world. And we deal in a lot of industrial and small bay flex, and you run into a similar issue as like having a tenant that uses too much parking in a retail setting. Auto shops are largely the same, and something that you guys definitely do not have a lot of is parking. So I've seen body shop sites on what I would have thought was like somebody's condo. I mean, the amount that they're able to do in business in such a small setting is incredible to me. That's a South Florida anomaly. But if I'm somebody that's got, let's say, 20,000 square feet, 10 tenant type of small bay flex area, and I've got the guy that's doing the auto repair, the Bavarian Auto, whatever, specialist kind of service, while their customers have their vehicles awaiting repair, they're not inside the shop. They're outside taking up common area parking, and they are typically a dirtier and more active use on the transit side of things, as opposed to some of your MEP tradesmen or MEP mechanical, electrical, plumbing tradesmen that in the morning send out their fleet that are going and doing their work out of their vans throughout the day. Maybe they park them at night in their designated areas, and that's as dirty as things get. You have environmental concerns as well. Like you said, vehicles have a number of different fluids in them that you have to account for, whether it be oil, coolant, transmission fluid, brake fluid especially is highly corrosive. If any of that comes into play on your site as a landlord, that's your bill that you're going to be footing if you go to sell that and fail your phase one. So I can sympathize with landlords that struggle to, accommodate for the automotive user. That is a challenge. And I think it's led to increased consolidation or accelerated consolidation, which, granted, it happens in every single industry. Scale continues to be more and more important. You've got national groups that will come in and they will out efficiency you to where your business just can't simply keep going. So, on the body shop side of things, they're buying larger warehouses than your local guy would typically operate out of. They have the modern, expensive safeguards in place to make sure that environmentally this is a floor that you could eat off of, rather than, having it be Jim and Tom's Body Shop, legacy place that's kind of dirty and you don't really want to be there. So I feel like that's definitely had a key play in things. On the retail side, you see more and more of these drive-through oil change spots that literally don't even get out of your car. I'll change your oil in about 8 minutes, drop the used oil into a container for recycling. None of it ever hits the floor. And they can do that with a purpose-built product outside of a Publix so much better than a guy operating out of a 1,500 square foot flex space in the middle of an industrial park. So as far as the solution goes for keeping those kind of businesses operational, I think owner using and getting a loan to secure your future is a critical component of your business plan. Because if you don't control that real estate asset and you're being threatened by, physically threatened, but there's a weakness in your business plan that may up and relocate your business, and you can't find another location for it. You have to find a way to play defense somehow.
Right.
If that means paying a pretty significant amount to own and control your space, then you should do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I appreciate your perspective. I wanted to ask a personal question because I live with 3 women that are all ADHD certified, good housekeeping seal and all. So my oldest daughter always reminds me that I'm the only neuronormative person in the household, which means that I am the weird one in the house.
They don't
But
think you have ADHD.
they don't think I have ADHD. They know for a fact that I don't have ADHD. But I find that there is a superpower in ADHD. And Jennifer and I have a close friend who is an industrial developer, extremely successful here in South Florida. His name is Gus Fonte, who has, let's just say that his ADHD, he lives it out loud, right? So I'm wondering, from your perspective, really, how that has, how from your purview, how do you see that ADHD has helped you in growing in your career? I know part of your description in LinkedIn is the fact that you love that commercial real estate gives you the opportunity to be involved in so many different things. No 2 days are ever the same. No 2 deals are ever the same. But yeah, I would love if you would chime in on that.
Yeah, no, I've been identified as squirrel before. I'm just kind of all over the place. But yeah, no, as somebody that is neurotypical in your household, I'm sure you're the ones keeping everything in check. But I feel that ADHD in my current role is something that can be a net positive when kind of channeled in the right way. So it does allow me to think outside of the box, get creative. I've put some really weird deals together in my few years because I allowed my brain to kind of think outside of what you might normally, put in this sort of specific box. In my first role out of college, I was in a tech sales role in a publicly traded company in a kind of cube farm, where they had a very organized, type of program on how you sold your product, and they needed it done their way, and you needed to follow and fit into that structure. And I hated it. Not the people that I worked with, they were great, but the structure was suffocating. And I never felt like there was a happy day at work for me because I had to do it their way. There was no ability to kind of flex or get creative with anything. So I learned kind of quickly on in my career what I did not want to do. And I feel like where I've landed here with a large, reputable shop that has the ability and the facilities to support me as a growing broker also has that kind of flexibility to allow me to bend a little bit here and there, do some things that if I were to try and do this maybe at like a CB or one of the major national shops, they'd be like, that's out of your purview, man. You can't do that. So it's been a real blessing for me to find commercial real estate, to have the ability to run my business the way that I would like to, and allow, like you said, allow this kind of superpower to flow through you and work effectively, as opposed to trying to having to bottle it up to fit into a certain box that maybe you don't ideally fit into. It's certainly been enlightening once I got into commercial real estate, how many different directions you can take things, and allowing my brain to kind of explore those things has been extremely enjoyable compared to previous experiences. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
ADHD is just one other acronym in CRE.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. At the end of every episode, we kind of do a fun fact, and in honor of you in Lee County, which is where Fort Myers is, I wanted to report the highest ever price sale for land at $620 million, which I don't know. They keep saying it's for land, but I think it's a business too. The Martin Marietta Company made two simultaneous deals to buy close to 2 acres of rock mines, which is near Alico, which I know Alico extremely well because it's like the way in and out of FGCU's main.
So you mentioned FGCU. So Florida Gulf Coast University is our public university here. Large and growing by the day. We have a real estate program as well. That's fantastic. That's involved in our local CCIM chapter. They're awesome. There is an old time family here, the Youngquists, that ran the quarry mines. So in South Florida, as you guys know, dirt is about as important as gold over here. You have to have fill in order to develop any sort of raw undeveloped land to bring things up to the FEMA floodplain level, compensating storage, this and that. Dirt is worth its weight in gold. So it's been a very successful business enterprise for them. I think I heard that they bought this land that they just transacted on many years ago for like $2 million. So
not a
wow,
bad return.
Not a bad return. But yeah, so a client of mine is best friends with one of the younger Youngquists, and I believe the transaction was about $630 million for the real estate itself. And then there was an additional about $200 million for the business and the FF&E.
So that was just
so
the land.
about,
Holy
I think,
cow! That's
$827 million. And my client, he told me a story. This was 2 days ago. Because it came together quickly.
Yeah.
And I know you guys do deal breakdowns. If I can ever sit in the room with them and, have a cigar and a bourbon and take notes, I'll be right back here to tell you guys all about it.
Awesome.
But they, my buddy said, they're family friends. Them and their wives went out to dinner, and he said, "Hey man, I'm buying." He said, "Why would you buy? I just did this massive deal." He said, "Well, I've always wanted to buy dinner for a billionaire." So, and keep in mind, these guys are like, they're on the right side of 40. So talking like this is just Twilight Zone levels of crazy. But yeah, so that was a crazy deal. No brokers were involved, unfortunately, for our community. But
wow.
No, it's an awesome deal. Earlier this year, our company did the largest industrial investment sale in Lee County history, which might have already been eclipsed, I think, earlier this month. So $93 million transaction with an institutional group out of Philly. And I think one just went for about 150 million, 800 plus thousand square feet, for 190 a square foot or something like that. So, Fort Myers is doing absolutely incredible. We are no longer a hidden gem as far as institutional capital goes. Very excited about this market and my ability to grow into and with it. And, whenever you've got your guys that are priced out of Miami, but really want to get into it down in South Florida, take a drive over. We'll show you around, and it'll be a good time.
Thank you so much. And I just have to say, it's incredible. I love, we always talk about connecting the dots, and in the papers, we're all reading about how the commercial market is pretty much dead. Interest rates aren't coming down, cap rates are too low, deals aren't getting done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think you just heard on this episode that it's not the case in every single market. It's not the case in every single asset class. So put on your thinking caps if you're in a market that is stale or dead, or if you're in a rut, just start thinking outside the box, connecting those dots, and listen to Carson.
Yeah, get out there, touch some grass, knock on some doors. There is always deals to be made. As big as our industry is, it's still a local business. You can always find opportunity wherever you are.
Well,
awesome.
Carson, you had me at bourbon and cigars, so we will see you in the West Coast very soon, sir.
Happy to host. Let's do it.
I would love that. That'd be awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody, again, for joining us and pulling up a chair right alongside with us. We really appreciate your feedback and your continued, commentary and support of this podcast. And now it's time to say goodbye. Say bye, Jennifer.
Bye, Jennifer.